Hello everybody, this is Monty with Flowers by the Bunch. Today we are going to work on an artificial arrangement for a table. So the container that we're going to use is this long dough bowl. We have these for sale here in our flower shop. So we're going to use this as our container for the arrangement. And then I've got a couple of pieces of floral foam. These are just styrofoam, and I realize that it's white, but I am actually going to cover it with a little bit of Spanish moss and then some pretty greens. I'm taking my floral knife and trimming up that foam just a little bit. It's just a little large. So you can take a floral knife and go ahead and trim that up as you need to. And I'm just going to take these two pieces of foam and I'm just going to glue them right down into my container. So I have my glue pan here. Set that moss there. I'm going to take a skewer. So this is just a bamboo skewer. And I'm going to add some of this glue right onto my foam. Now you can absolutely use a hot glue gun if you have one on hand. I do not have one on hand, so I'm just adding glue to the back side of my foam, and I'm just pressing that right down into that dough bowl. And of course I don't have enough glue on it. So I just poured a little of that glue right down. And it's going to take just a few minutes for that to set. Okay. And then I'm going to add a little glue to this one. I trimmed it because I think that's the reason. This bowl has a little bit of a bow, right? And so with that little bit of a bow, it's not wanting to catch that foam. So sometimes you just got to adjust it. There we go. Now that's going to glue right down to the center. That's perfect. My foam was just a little too wide to sit down into that center. And so when I trimmed it, it helped it. Okay. So next what we're going to do after we're glued in, and I'm throwing all my flowers on the floor. Next what we're going to do is we're going to add a little moss because we want to cover up this foam. It's always important to cover those mechanics because we don't want them to show, do we? So I'm going to just take this Spanish moss and I'm just tucking it right around that foam. So just tuck it right around the foam. So there you can see that it covered up that foam. Now I left the foam showing on the top because sometimes it is hard to press those flowers right through that moss. So that's the reason I kind of left the top of the foam showing there. Next we're going to come in with our greenery. So I'm going to set my flowers right here. And we're going to come in with some pretty mixed greenery. So the first greenery we're going to use is, this is some foliage I picked up from a wholesaler called Floral. You can order it online. They do have a website. But I love this pretty greenery. It reminds you a little bit of olive, but it's flatter. It's just a really pretty greenery. So I'm going to take my floral wire snips and I'm going to cut it into smaller pieces. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that small piece and I'm going to dip it right into my glue and I'm going to press it right down into that floral foam. and you just cut those pieces small. And then you're going to dip them in your glue and press them right down into that foam. And you can cut them into lots of tiny pieces if you want to. That's what I'm doing here, is just taking and cutting them into smaller pieces. I don't want them to take over my arrangement, but I do need pretty greens throughout.
Gotcha. Okay. Perfect. So we'll do a nice
Each little piece right into that glue and just tucking those right in. So you can see how I'm just kind of laying that greenery. I want my dough ball to show. So I don't want to go too much with the greenery, but I need to go enough that it covers up those mechanics, right? This would be a good time to use up if you have any of the greenery. Sometimes we make a silk arrangement where we don't use all of the greenery on the flowers. This would be the perfect time to use that greenery if you had any extras. So always save those if you can. If you have room to save them, always save those, because this is the perfect time to use some of that greenery that you saved from a previous project. Okay, so this is a type of fern, so I'm just going to take and cut about 3 stems off. I'm going to lay this to the side. I love to buy foliage in a bush because it goes such a long way. And so I just take 2 or 3 little stems off of a bush and tuck it in, and if I need a little more, I cut a little more off. So again, I'm going to take this and cut it into smaller pieces. So I have 3 pieces out of that one little stem.
Okay.
Just tuck that in.
Perfect. So just send it over to that email. Perfect. Awesome. We'll get this on.
I love different textures too when it comes to foliage. It's always nice to have different textures of foliage. All right, so I cut some more, and we're just gonna add those in. Again, this is really all in your preference. You're not going to mess this part up. Just add as much or as little as you'd like. Just make sure that you're covering those edges and you're covering that foam. Okay, there's some pretty greenery. We are going to wait and add more greenery at the end after we have added our flowers. So our blooms include, let's see what we have down here. We're doing artificial flowers because this is going to be for a dining room table. Try not to get them in my glue because I'm the world's worst. Okay, so the colors that we've chosen are some pretty green hydrangeas. So we've got these beautiful green hydrangeas, a little bit of burgundy, and actually this is going to be for a gentleman's home, and he just wanted a pretty arrangement that was not too feminine, so I thought the burgundy was perfect. And then we've got a little bit of an orange or peachy tone to add in. So we're going to start out with our hydrangeas. I'm going to take my snips. I'm going to dip it in the glue and press that stem right down into that foam. My larger bloom I'm going to put in the center. Everything's going to be pretty low because we don't want anything too high. We want him to be able to leave that on the table if he'd like. And then I'm going to do my third bloom. I said, Jim. My third bloom towards the end down here, the opposite end. Okay. So there's our green hydrangeas, just very simple but very pretty. Now I do have a few blooms, and what I will do is I will get my pick machine. So this is a pick machine, and a pick machine has these metal, they're steel picks. And so they were used a lot in floral design when I first started. I don't use it nearly as much as we used to use it back in the day. But what it does is it puts this little pick on the end of some greenery or your stems. And it makes it easier. These stems are pretty, they're pretty pliable. So they're not gonna stick really well down into this foam. But once you put that steel pick on it, it gives it something to press right down into the foam. So I can take that steel pick, dip it in that glue, and then glue it right into my arrangement. Now you need to be careful with these picks because they have pretty sharp edges. So you don't want to run your fingers down that, that pick, but it works really well in giving a good base to the bottom of that foliage. Now a pick machine has these little picks. I'm going to see if I can't pull it out. And they come in like a little box, and they come in a sleeve. And so what you can do is you can just drop that sleeve right down onto this, into this machine just like this. This weight holds those picks down. You can feed that pick with this little lever, and you pull it and feed the pick. Add your greenery right here into, it's got like little teeth, and you add your greenery right down in there. And then you use this lever to press it down. And so it'll just clip onto that foliage. So it's really a great machine. It's great. Now you can order these, you can get them from your local floral supply company, or I know that I was at Hobby Lobby and they have pick machines at Hobby Lobby. Now they are not cheap, so if you could get a refurbished one, or find a flower shop going out of business that doesn't need theirs anymore, that would be the way to purchase one, because they're kind of like, I don't even know, a good old dinosaur. But they hold up really well. It's hard to mess up a pick machine. The only way you can mess up is not having this weight. The weight is the most important part about this pick machine. And if you don't have the weight, you can't hardly get the pick machine to work. So the next flower I chose was that orange, that pretty orange carnation. And I have two of those blooms. So I'm gonna I put one on one side, right there. And then I'm gonna turn it around and put the other one over here, kind of across from it. Dip that in glue and press it right in. But I will tell you, honestly, I don't use the pick machine nearly enough to constitute the cost for it. So if you can't get it for a really good deal for inexpensive, you might even be able to go on eBay and find a used one for fairly inexpensive. But if you can't find it for cheap, I would tell you just to use wood picks. They work just the same. They're a little more work, but with as little as I use it, I would say I would not purchase it at full price. Okay, so I'm just taking a couple of that peachy color and I put it on each end. And I'm really just now gonna fill in with the flowers, with the blooms that I have. You have this beautiful rose. I think I'm gonna nestle it kind of in the center there. Love that. It's a really blown open, almost a garden variety type rose. It's really pretty. I think it's going to take a pick. I'm going to have to pick it. My stem is really pliable, and so it's not wanting to stick right down into that foam. So I just picked it and then added a little glue. him right there. He's such a pretty bloom. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pull off some of these pretty foliage. I'm gonna save them and we'll add those at the end. Next, we're gonna come in with some maroon, this pretty burgundy color. And so I'm gonna take and cut those into smaller pieces. And we're just going to kind of go throughout. I really think that burgundy is such a good added color to kind of these peach tones. Give you that pretty pop of that burgundy tone. I would turn it, but I'm running over my glue pen every time I twist this Lazy Susan. Okay, let's add a little bit more foliage. So we've got some pretty textures here. So this is just, I don't know, it's almost a little bit of a vine look. So just a pretty little vine. I've got 2 of those. And then this, I don't even know, it almost kind of looks like a little type of fern. So I'm going to take this and cut it into smaller pieces. Again, I really like foliage. I like having mixed varieties of foliage because I just think they make such a pretty presentation. So I'm going to take that stem and trim it off. It's pretty sturdy. I'm going to dip it in glue. Now what you're going to do with this final foliage is you are going to make sure that all of your foam and everything is covered. So this is just going to almost be like your little filler flower. And you are going to just tuck it throughout to make sure that you're covering all of those mechanics. And again, this is where you can use up any of those extra leftover pieces of foliage. You can tuck them in. I'm going to take these little rose leaves. I'm going to put a pick on the bottom. Dip it in that glue. And tuck that right in. And that really saves money, guys. It saves you money in the end. You don't have to go out and buy expensive foliage. Okay, so I kind of leaned it up. I saw a little place right here. I'm gonna cover. So be sure you kind of lift up everything. Make sure it's all covered. And there is our finished centerpiece. He wanted something that did not scream fall. He wanted to be able to pull it through throughout the year. And I really think with these colors you really can. It gives us a pop of color, but it doesn't scream autumn. It doesn't scream summer or spring. It's just a really pretty, with lots of tones and lots of color, but not too much that screams a holiday. Guys, thank you for being here with me today. If you have any questions about how I put this together, don't hesitate to ask. This is such a simple project that anyone could do. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'd love to answer. I hope that you all have a wonderful afternoon. If you have not already subscribed to our channel, be sure to do that. Hit that subscribe button down below. Also, hit that little bell and it'll give you notifications for when we have a new video. Guys, I hope you have a great day. We'll see you soon.